Welcome, everybody. My name is Simone. I work at the IPBES Secretariat in charge of all the programmatic and work program issues. So very happy to give you a brief introduction of what is IPBES and the work that IPBES is doing. Thank you very much. So IPBES was founded back in 2012. So that's not very long ago in terms of multilateral environmental governance. So we consider ourselves still as a quite new platform. IPBES was created as a independent intergovernmental body, and it was founded back by 94 states. And we are very proud that by now we have reached membership of over 150 states. So IPBES has grown quite a lot in the past couple of years. The main function of IPBES is, of course, to support the science policy interface, so to strengthen the knowledge foundations for better policy through science for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, long-term human well-being, and sustainable development. When you look at our governance structure, you can see some familiarities with multilateral environmental agreements, such as, for example, the CBD or UNFCCC. You see that we have a governing body, like the body that takes all the decisions and meets about once a year. That's for us the plenary, but that's comparable to a COP at, for example, the CBD. Then we have two subsidiary bodies, also comparable to an MEA. We have there a bureau, which consists of about 10 members. But we also have the multidisciplinary expert panel as a second subsidiary body that is composed of 25 individual experts who are there to support the scientific and technical functions of the platform. That means they support the quality control of our assessments, but also in general support scientific and technical functions. Then we have a series of expert groups and task forces that have very specific roles and functions. So for each of the IPBES assessments, the multidisciplinary expert panel selects a set of experts and that constitute an expert group that develop over 2 or 3 or 4 years one of the IPBES assessments. And we also have task forces, for example, on capacity building, the group that is organizing us today, or also on indigenous and local knowledge and others. We will come back to that a few slides later. Stakeholders for IPBES are all those that are interested in contributing to our work, be it as reviewers, but also later on as users of the work of IPBES. So we have a very broad definition of stakeholders. And at the bottom, you see the Secretariat. We are located in Bonn, Germany, and here to support all the different bodies of IPBES in their different roles and functions. IPBES has a conceptual framework that promotes an integrated approach across the work of IPBES and ensures that we include actively a wide variety of knowledge systems. That means we are not only looking at traditional science, but we also look at indigenous and local knowledge throughout our work. Next slide. We currently work under the IPBES 2030 Rolling Work Program. That work program was decided and approved by the plenary back in 2019 at IPBES 7, and it consists of 6 objectives that reflect the 4 functions of IPBES. That's assessing knowledge, building capacity, strengthening the knowledge foundations, and supporting policy, but also objectives on communicating and engaging, and on improving the effectiveness of IPBES, making sure that we constantly review our work. Next slide. Then coming back to what we discussed a little bit earlier, if you look at the 6 objectives, you can see that for assessing knowledge, that is the preparation of assessments, we have expert groups that do so, and they are supported by a technical support unit. That's a mini secretariat hosted at an organization that supports the work of the expert group. Similarly, for capacity building, data and knowledge management, indigenous and local knowledge, and scenarios and models, we have task forces also supported by a technical support unit, and the MAP and Bureau directly oversee work on policy support and on knowledge generation catalysis, each supported by a TSU. And communications is done by the IPBES Secretariat, supported by the IPBES Bureau. And similarly, the improving effectiveness function is overseen by MAP and Bureau. Next slide. Now, if we look at Objective 1 a bit more, the IPBES assessments, for those of you who just arrived very newly at IPBES, IPBES assessments are not research. We are not a research institute, but the assessments look at all the research that is out there on a specific topic and critically evaluate that knowledge. So the assessments look always at a very specific topic that is approved by the plenary. Then the best scientists from around the world are nominated and selected later by the MEP to conduct these assessments. So if IPBES started in 2012, it took a couple of years to get the few first assessments ready. And so you can see in 2016, the plenary finalized the assessments on pollination and on scenarios and models. Then 2 years later, we had 5 regional assessments and the assessment of land degradation and restoration. In 2019, our landmark global assessment. In 2022, the assessments of values of nature and sustainable use. 2023, invasive alien species, and most recently approved at IPBES 11 in Namibia, the nexus and the transformative change assessments. So 13 reports that involved about 3,000 experts in total. Next slide. This is just a quick example of the uptake of our assessments, the media response to the global assessment. And next slide, you can see the media response to the invasive alien species assessment. And on next slide, you can see a few examples of how the IPBES assessments have been used over the last couple of years. For the global assessment, one of the major influences was, of course, on the zero-order draft of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, but there are also like the G20 Commitment on Biodiversity, G7 Biodiversity Charter, multiple effects at the national level and across society. So if you're interested in more, we have the IPBES track database on our website where you can browse through the examples of how the IPBES assessments to date have been used. The most recent assessments, as said, are the Nexus assessment, and the Transformative Change assessment. They're both being finalized as we speak. We're working on the laid-out versions of the SPM and the chapters and on some materials that support their uptake. So please watch our website in the next couple of weeks. There should be more information on these 2 important assessments. Next slide. Now, if we're looking at what is IPBES up to in the next couple of years, right now we're working on the business and biodiversity assessment, a methodological assessment looking at the impacts and dependence of business on biodiversity. That assessment will be finalized in time for consideration by the plenary at IPBES 12, that is scheduled for February 2026. And then we're just in the process of starting a second global assessment of biodiversity and ecosystem services. Neville just referred to the nomination of experts. So for that assessment, we are at the stage of selecting the experts. Monitoring, a methodological assessment looking at monitoring biodiversity, is well underway, and you will have a chance to review a draft later this year. And last but not least, integrated biodiversity, inclusive spatial planning and ecological connectivity. Also starting, we're just about to inform governments and candidates of the outcome of the selection. This will take us about, I think, 3 to 4 weeks more, and then you will hear about the results of the selection process. Next slide. Just scroll through these. I said we have the business monitoring, spatial assessment, and global. So we can you can have a closer look at the information on the slides and also on the website. And then let's briefly look at the other functions of IPBES. So next 2 slides, yes, we're looking at building capacity, strengthening the knowledge foundations and supporting policy. For objective 2, building capacity, this is the task force that hosts us today, and that's an example of their work, that we as IPBES also have a function that provides support to national focal points in their role, but also to experts to understand what an IPBES expert role, how an IPBES expert role is defined, how you do an IPBES assessment. And we also have a work stream that focuses on engagement with youth and early career scientists, such as our fellows program. Next slide. Then we have, under the work on knowledge, supporting the knowledge foundations, we have 3 work streams. We have one work stream on data and knowledge management that is an inward-facing function where the IPBES assessments are supported by a dedicated task force and a dedicated technical support unit in the use of data and knowledge, and they're currently working on a guide on how to use artificial intelligence within IPBES. Next slide. We also look in our assessments not only at the knowledge that is available, but also on the knowledge that is not. And so each of our assessments identifies knowledge gaps. And IPBES has a work stream where we are communicating these work streams to research programmers and funders, to academics, of course, to governments, and to all interested stakeholders, with the hope that over time these knowledge gaps are being filled. Next slide. Then, as mentioned, when we looked at the conceptual framework, IPBES also emphasizes work with indigenous and local knowledge. So we have a dedicated task force, again, supported by a technical support unit that is looking into this work. And yeah, we have a whole approach on how to work with indigenous and local knowledge. And there is a work stream that engages with indigenous peoples and local communities at different points in the IPBES work, for example, throughout the assessments. Next slide. Then once an assessment has been completed, we also support the uptake and use of IPBES assessments. There's, for example, the development of fact sheets or meetings, dialogue workshops that help us to understand the assessments, exchange information on how they can be used at different levels. And last but not least, next slide, we have a task force, one more task force on scenarios and models. As you have seen, we had a very first assessment on scenarios and models back in 2016. And over the years, we have continued this work on promoting the catalyzation of new scenarios and models for biodiversity and ecosystem services. But we also have a team here that supports ongoing assessments in the work on scenarios and models. Next slide. That's a very brief overview of what we do at IPBES, and very happy to answer questions.
So Simon will be talking about your role as national focal points. Please.
Super, yes. And this is the moment, I think, where we should also introduce our manual for national focal points. That's a little guidance now that we have available on the IPBES website, and that was also included in the notification that we have sent out. And it is available in all 6 UN languages on the website. That basically summarizes what I said earlier about how IPBES works, but then also gives an overview of all the different entry points for national focal points and the different roles that you have. So now let's go through this. And the slides work perfect. So the first one, very important, is being informed, as Neville said. Like, there's a lot happening at IPBES, and we send out a lot of these notifications, and we apologize for the density of these notifications sent out in some weeks. But this is our main way of communicating with all our stakeholders, and in particular with you as national focal points. in order to receive our notifications. And if not done so, please make sure that you have an account on our website and that you have ticked the box that allows you to receive our notifications. We also have, of course, the IPBES website where you can find information on everything we do. We have a IPBES calendar there on the website. We try to keep this as updated as possible. So if you're interested in what's next, what is coming up, please have a look at the calendar. Very important tool for us. Then each of the regions has 2 members of the bureau. And sometimes these bureau members will also reach out to you with particular information, and always feel free to reach out to your members of the bureau in case you have any comments or questions. The IPBES website also has a section with IPBES experts where you can check and filter who are the IPBES experts from my country or my region that are currently active in IPBES if you're looking for speakers or people to engage with on IPBES. Our communications team here at the IPBES Secretariat also makes sure that we are present on multiple media channels. Have a look at all the little icons here on the slide, and we are doing social media in English, but also French and Spanish. Then a next function is submitting requests. So anything IPBES works on comes from requests by governments, multilateral environmental agreements, and other stakeholders. So we are very much demand driven. And these requests, as we call them, requests for inputs and suggestions for the IPBES work program, they are issued at multiple points in time. So of course, following the establishment of IPBES, there was a request to make such submissions that led to the development of the first IPBES work program. Then following IPBES 6 in 2018, a call that led to the development of the 2030 rolling work program that we had a look at earlier. And then following IPBES 9, additional topics for addition to the work program, as it is a rolling work program, were issued. And just now, last call closed on the 31st of May, where we asked for additional topics to also include in the 2030 work program, because at IPBES 12, the plenary decided to look at an additional topic up to 2030. So this is a very, very important mechanism. Always look out for the opportunities to submit these requests, which then are grouped by our MEP and bureau, but ultimately decided on by the plenary. Then also mentioned by Neville, whenever the plenary decides that we are doing something like a new assessment on a specific topic or any other project, or if the plenary decides to establish a new task force, for example, on capacity building on ILK, then we issue a call for the nomination of experts. The nomination can be done by governments and organizations that are relevant to the work of IPBES, and the nominations are done through a dedicated online portal. So the way it goes is that you first need to encourage the experts that are interested to apply in the system, and then the national focal points will receive a link, a nomination link, where they can confirm the experts in the system. So it is not you as a national focal point filling in the form with the details of the applicant, but the applicants themselves fill in the form, and then you would be reviewing and endorsing their nomination in our system. The selection, as mentioned before, is done by the multidisciplinary expert panel, by our independent experts. For task forces, they are supported by the bureau. And then once everything is final, you will receive an automated message that informs you about the status of your nominations. Then we have quite a number of examples of national nomination processes, and I think this is what we can discuss a little bit also in the group work and later in the question and answers. So one element that I highlighted is that the experts need to first apply themselves. And so you as national focal points, of course, play a role in spreading the word about the nomination call. So make sure that you distribute the calls for nominations all throughout the relevant channels in order to make sure that they reach relevant experts. And also you may want to identify funding sources. So all these roles at IPBES are not positions, they're not funded, they're voluntary roles that experts do in their free time. Then some countries have a mechanism where they pre-select candidates that they would like to nominate. We can also discuss and hear about this a bit later. But the idea is that you really have a close look at the nominees, at the experts that apply, and send a set of experts with diverse backgrounds, different genders, different perspectives to IPBES. Then once an assessment has started, as said, they take a couple of years to be finalized. The assessments are made available for external review. That is to make sure that the assessments cover all the literature out there that is relevant and really cover all the latest science. But it's also important that the assessments are policy relevant, that the assessments are useful to you. So for you as national focal points, it is important that you engage in these external reviews to make sure that we get the best possible and most useful assessments through our process. Whenever there is an external review, these drafts are strictly confidential. So we need to adhere to quite a strict protocol there. You need to register as a reviewer on our website. You need to follow strict submission procedures, how we can consolidate your comments to make sure that we see from whom the comments are coming. And also bear with us, there are a lot of comments that come in. So by using our template in our submission system, you actually enable us to get these comments to our experts in a coordinated fashion. So it sounds a little bit complicated in the beginning, but if you have any problems, always feel free to reach out to the Secretariat, and we're happy to guide you in the review and submission process. Yeah, again, examples at the national level, countries make sure that they distribute the opportunity to review widely to relevant experts in the field. Sometimes countries have processes where they consult internally before they submit comments on behalf of a country. So a wide variety of options on how to structure this review process and which resources to make use of. We can also talk about the role of national platforms a bit later, but always bear in mind the confidentiality of the draft. So please check, is this a review that is open or is it a government-only review? Which confidentiality terms apply, etc., etc. Then, as Neville highlighted, of course, you can have perfect assessments, but they need to be used by the world. So we always look to national focal points in supporting the use and uptake of our assessments. The Capacity Building Task Force will send out a notification very early after an assessment has been approved, highlighting all the support that we can offer to you. So if you would like to organize a uptake event at the national level, capacity building colleagues will liaise with the experts so we can see whether one of the experts involved in the assessments would be available to speak at your event. We have materials available, like our communications team in Bonn always make sure that we have printed versions of the assessments. We have flyers on what is IPBES, some promotion materials, and also the short and concise fact sheets that help to help people to enter the assessments and do more reading. So reach out to us if you're interested in organizing any of the events. There are examples on the slide, like it can be just the brown bag lunch meeting at your institute to a full-blown physical meeting with all the experts that may be relevant in the field. So wide field of what can be done in terms of uptake. there is a lot of examples that I'm not going through at the moment, but for the Nexus in Transformative Change Assessment that were only approved a couple of months ago, we already have very nice examples of events that were held to promote the uptake and show what is in the assessments. And last but not least, of course, we talk a lot about assessments, but you can always engage with the other functions of IPBES as well. As mentioned, we have a fellowship program that is supported by our team on capacity building. Capacity building, we have a task force, but also the technical support unit in Norway. And the team is supporting, on the one hand, the selection of fellows for each of the IPBES assessments, but also organizes a full program for these fellows, like how do you integrate as an expert into an assessment team, what skills do you need? We bring together fellows from previous assessments with ongoing assessments. There is an alumni workshop, so a very nice program, and we rely on you as the national focal points to make sure that we have good candidates nominated for this fellowship program. We also have, for each of the steps in the assessment, support from the capacity building team. So as said before, we have the nomination of experts, and you will be invited to join an online meeting that explains what the latest assessment or task forces that we are seeking nominations for are about. And there is the opportunity to ask questions, speak with previous experts, etc. Whenever there's the opportunity to review an assessment, the capacity building team organizes with the experts a dialogue workshop where you can hear a short summary from the experts on what the assessment is at the moment, what the draft is all about, what key questions are, and you can engage with the authors in a question and answer session, and also orally already make a few comments, which then you have to submit through the slightly complex process, but there is this opportunity to engage. So capacity building is there to help you in your role as national focal points all along, and we are happy if you engage in all the different opportunities and meetings there. Supporting policy, as mentioned, we will have these workshops where we support the uptake of the assessments. And on strengthening knowledge foundations, as mentioned, we have these opportunities to engage in the uptake or closing of gaps in knowledge that were identified in the assessments. Then there are some events organized mainly by capacity building that service broader engagement. In some years, we have physical meetings of the national focal points to discuss ongoing work of IPBES. And we also have an annual meeting of the IPBES Capacity Building Forum that looks at engagement by stakeholders, but which is oftentimes also open to national focal points, where you can engage on, for example, the use of the transformative change assessment later this year. Yeah, and I think that's it for my overview of the roles